Stability and disruption is about a dichotomy between kinds of opposites, or what might seem to be opposites. In the world of Midrash, the world of scriptural interpretation, which is the field that I have my doctorate in from the Jewish Theological Seminary right here in New York, we see that in the period following the destruction of the Second Temple, that a small band of reasonably radical but very much established figures, known as the sages, known as the rabbis, determined that while the community had been completely disrupted by the destruction of the Second Temple, and that the power structure of the Jewish world had been completely disrupted, there needed to be stability. There needed to be continuity. So the story of the rabbinic interpretation of our classic texts was always about maintaining legacies, maintaining traditions, and then interpreting them and reimagining them in what has often been radical, even disruptive ways. And so as we think about how we, as inheritors of 2,000 years of stability and disruption, want to manage this transition of our agency, this opportunity for our field, the field of Jewish community centers, and I would suggest that really the field of Jewish communal life as a whole, that we need to find ways to balance our own sensibilities around stability and disruption. What are the core texts? What are the core practices? What are the essential legacies that we need to preserve, while at the same time disturbing them just enough so that we invite new ideas, new talent, new resources into the field? What is our story of stability and disruption? So we all inherit an incredible framework, an incredible structure, and that is in 350 sites around North America, Jewish life often finds its hub in the community centers, in the camps, in the programs that we have the incredible privilege to represent. And we actually know, in a large part by virtue of the incredible investment that the JCC Association has made, led by Alan for the past 21 years, we actually can look out at the vast landscape of Jewish engagement, Jewish meeting, Jewish opportunity across the continent and across the globe and say that we've been a part of shaping a movement that says that Jewish communities can be defined culturally. Jewish communities can be defined as agencies with multiple points of contact: early childhood education, camp, culture, programs for seniors. It can be defined by agencies that serve both Jews and non-Jews, agencies that employ in a deep and sustainable way Jews and non-Jews, and that we have created, through our work together, an incredible landscape of these stations, these hubs, these gatherings of Jewish meaning. And yet, we know that within that stability, within the stability of this network of agencies, which together, by the metrics that I've been thinking about, engage more Jewish people in a given year than any other network of Jewish agencies anywhere outside of the state of Israel. Think about it. That's an incredible gift that we have to think about for the next 2 days. So how can we provide stability to that network, but at the same time disrupt it enough to invite the new in? And here, in the assessment that I've had the great opportunity to engage in over the past 2.5 months, which is really the assessment that I've been engaged in over the past decade, having participated in the life of JCCs as a member of the senior team of 2 JCCs. We are hearing about our excellence, and we are hearing about our challenges. We discussed in the executive committee just a few minutes ago opportunities that we have to amplify and enhance our excellence in key programs. We know that we can be on the leading edge of early childhood education. We know that we can be on the leading edge of camp, both residential camp and day camps. We know that our talent management program, which you're going to be hearing about more tomorrow, has the opportunity to transform the way we think about engaging, training, maintaining, and promoting talent in the JCC system. But we also know that there are leaders, skilled, trained, talented, caring, and fully communicative leaders who question the value of the JCC Association for their JCCs. And often, it is the leaders of some of our most thriving JCCs. JCCs which in some sense benefit from the movement that we have all created together, and in some cases are even ahead of us in thinking about the movement. So I think that part of the stability that we need to seek is investing in a deeper way and where we really can provide immediate and sustainable value for our JCCs. And you're going to be learning in the next weeks and months about how we're going to do that in early childhood, in camp, in talent management, and with a glimpse, I hope, into a variety of other areas today and tomorrow with signature programs that we are beginning to generate that can create hubs of best practices, of inspiration, of talent that can feed the entire JCC system. So that's ways that we're going to focus on stability. We're also going to focus on stability while we have benefited from tremendous stability in the interim role that Arlene has played in our FRD department, in our development department. We began last week a search for a vice president for development for JCC Association. And as Steve mentioned, I'm delighted that I've been able to activate my network of philanthropists and foundations that are curious about what's next for us. That offers us stability. Our finance committee will be thinking today and tomorrow in a continuation of conversations that we've been having over the past few months of how we will find stability in our budget. Transitions invite change, budgets demand change, and we need to think about how we make use of the resources we have in a sustainable, responsible way to ensure that we are not only able to keep the lights on in the way that we like, but that we are able to invest in stability for value for the JCCs that are our partners and clients immediately. There is tremendous stability that we need to invest in. So what's the disruption in the story? In many ways, I think the story of disruption is a question of how I'd like the tone of this conversation to continue. And it's one that is a continuation of values because we're a values-driven organization in a values-driven field. We have the incredible opportunity to be values-driven in our approach to the clientele as JCCs because we are about creating value for the people who walk in our doors. But we also need to have values and value-driven approaches for our clientele, the JCCs. Because as you know, because some of you sign those checks, JCCs invest in us so that we can invest in them. JCCs invest in us so that we can invest in them. The transparency and a values-driven approach, a kind of disruption which leads to more stability, is being sure that we create the communication structure, the level of transparency, hubs of engagement, so that we empower, that we hear, that we are open to the constructive critique of the agencies that are leading our movement. Some of them are large and some of them are small. Many of them are not on the East or West Coast, would you believe? We need to be thinking systemically about JCCs and the JCC movement and JCC Association. And as we think about the staff, the structure, the budget, and the programs, over the next 18 months, we are hopeful that in a core hub of conversations that we will launch with you, with our JCC leadership, and with Jewish communal leaders across the landscape of Jewish communal life, that we will both stabilize our incredible legacy as an institution and destabilize it by hearing what's next from our clientele. Leadership of JCCs around the country are not just invited to the table of conversation for what's next for JCC Association. They are the table. They are the table. And so I think it will take a lot of goodwill and a lot of bravery on all of our parts to be open to the fact that if we want to go from stable and good to truly outstanding and essential, if we really want to set the bar for excellence to the level that our JCCs expect from us, we need to invite a conversation that will at times be challenging, but will be honest and unites all of us in a vision and a mission for fulfilling what this agency can and should be. If we truly represent the largest network of Jewish agencies serving more Jewish people in more interesting ways than any other network outside of the state of Israel, we will have to be very large in our capacity to listen. And if we are large in our capacity to listen, and we are willing to reconstitute ourselves in context of what we hear with partners who have the patience and audacity to stick with us as we go through that process, our story can be so grand and so colorful and so meaningful and so sustainable that a year, 2 years, 3 years from now, we almost couldn't even imagine how great it could be. Stability and disruption. So I invite you, as we enter into the conversations over the next 2 days, to think of this as a conversation that might be in its most intensive form when we're together. But really, as Steve noted, in the way that I approach this work, these conversations happen all the time. And I encourage you to talk, and I encourage you to share the conversations with me and with yourselves, and to recognize also that the structure of the agency, the way that we gather and organize as an agency, the way we allocate resources, the way we engage with our clientele, also impacts how the board itself wants to think about how it wants to be engaged in this conversation. So you'll find yourselves in committees similar to the committees that we've been with together over the past few iterations of the board meeting. Recognize that they were shaped in part so that the person who would be in my role would have the opportunity to have key conversations launched and deep into their evaluation when that person came on board. We look forward to the results of these conversations, highlighting signature programs, but more than anything else, let's be bold in thinking about what we need to become, and let's be bold as listeners. We called this new blog that I've been working on Sounding Board because it is really all about listening. The policies and values that drive the best JCCs in the country are the policies and values that should drive us. Transparency, listening, response, and structuring in the image of the services and needs of our clientele. We're going to lead by listening, and we're going to listen by leading, and what we will create together will be the result of an incredible conversation. And this is a room where that conversation is launched. So it's my honor and privilege to be with you, but I want you to think about a term that I hope that we'll be referencing time and time again, and that's the term of an ecosystem. So stability and disruption in an ecosystem is a necessity of any organism, of any entity. We fall so we can get up. We get sick so we can get better. We raise our heart rate so that we can get healthy. We're always up and down, through and around, always in movement, always engaged, always dynamic, always seeking balance. And so we are an ecosystem as an agency seeking the balance between stability and disruption. We, in engagement with our JCC constituencies, are an organism, an ecosystem seeking stability and disruption. And ultimately, we are a reflection of the Jewish people in the highest sense of the word. So think about us as an ecosystem. Think about us as a garden that needs to be cultivated. Think about us as a piece of music that needs to be conducted. Think about us in a certain way as a kind of temple that needs to be built. And this, to me, is the beauty of the opportunity before us. We have a legacy that we can build upon, a set of practices that we can call upon, and the talent, an overflowing opportunity, an overflowing reservoir of talent, which can fulfill that vision. So I thank you for the opportunity to be a part of that conversation with you, and I'm very glad to be here. So thank you.